Well, it's 12:30, everybody, so I think we'll get started. I'm chairing today's webinar. I'm Trevor Hodkinson. I'm a professor in botany from the School of Natural Sciences here in Trinity College, Dublin. I'm delighted to welcome you to this webinar on for a future in environment, which is showcasing the master's programs in the E3 Teaching Foundry and project. We have participants from across the globe. I think nearly all continents are represented. So thank you very much for joining us today. What we really want to do is give you a taste of the postgraduate master's course offerings that come from the area of natural sciences, but also physics and the wider environment as well. Joining us today, we have a panel of past students, current students, careers advisor, members of industry who are going to participate in a panel discussion later in this session. So I'd just like to very quickly introduce those to you now. You can see on the slide that we have Mairéad O'Donnell, who's the current student in the Masters in Development Practice. We have Wynne from the Trinity Careers Advisory Service. We have Namrata Kaile, who is a past graduate from the MSc in Environmental Sciences, and she now works for the engineering company Barry and Partners. They're a civil and environmental engineering company. We have the Chief Executive Officer of Airgrid. Airgrid are the electricity company in Ireland. And we have Selina Paxton, who's a past graduate from the Energy Science Masters in Trinity, and she's currently working for Noriker Power Limited. So the agenda for today is, first of all, we're going to have a welcome video from the Vice President of Trinity College for Global Relations, Juliet Hussey. Then we'll have a short video outlining the E3 Learning Foundry and the project, to tell you all about that and how the different master's courses fit into that program, to give you an overview. And then thirdly, we'll have a panel discussion where you'll get a chance to meet the panel, to hear about the different courses and the links to industry and job opportunities that come through those. So if we could start the video now, please.
Good morning. I'm delighted to welcome you to Trinity. My name is Juliet Hussey, and I'm the current Vice President for Global Relations here in Trinity. Let me start by saying a few words about Trinity, and then I'll say a few words about the exciting area of E3. Trinity has a 400-year history of excellence in teaching and research. Trinity is the highest ranking university in Ireland and a member of the League of European Research Universities. Research is fundamental to all that we do, and research-led teaching is very much part of our identity. Our research is multidisciplinary, and much of the focus of our research is aimed at the great global challenges that we all face, such as climate change, sustainability, infection and immunology, aging. Trinity is a comprehensive university composed of 3 faculties and 24 schools. Trinity is recognised as an international university, and this year we were delighted to be ranked 8th in the world and 1st in Europe in terms of internationalisation. We have a diverse student body, with almost 30% of our students coming from outside of Ireland. And these students come from over 120 countries around the world, and so the classroom experience is very rich in terms of diversity. The opportunity to learn alongside and from students with different perspectives leads to great discussions and in-depth learning in the classroom and beyond. Much of the student activity in Trinity is focused on engagement in clubs and society, and so there's a long tradition of learning both inside and outside the classroom. E3 is the name we have given to engineering, environment, and emerging technologies. The focus of teaching and research in E3 is directed towards finding balanced solutions for a better world, recognizing the need for technology to be delivered and developed in symbiosis with the natural world, allowing a more sustainable future for all. This event today will provide information on many of the postgraduate programs delivered in the schools of engineering, natural sciences, and computer science and statistics. I hope you find the event engaging. I hope it may encourage you to apply to do postgraduate study in Trinity. Thank you. Good morning.
We have an obligation as a third-level research institution to respond to what are the social, climatic, environmental, energy crises in which the world finds itself. Human activity is causing catastrophic changes in our planet, and the real big tipping point is about 2050. So the graduates that come out of Trinity in the next 5 years are the people that will have to contribute to the solutions to these problems, and we're going to do it through E3.
E3 is a multidisciplinary program, and multidisciplinary programs are greater than the sum of their parts. The E3 project is taking students beyond the traditional area of science of discovery and moving us towards the science of engagement and collaboration.
E3 stands for a merging of environmental science, engineering, and computer science and statistics. It's a conceptual, philosophical transformation of the way in which science is taught in Trinity at the moment.
Our graduates will be entering a rapidly changing world, socially and environmentally. And the E3 program will build a diverse set of transferable skills that will enable them not just to contribute, but to lead by example. And that opens up enormous opportunities for generating innovations and also for tackling those complex problems that help us to transition to becoming a much more sustainable society.
It is by far the biggest higher education project in Ireland. The model of what we're doing, if we get it right, will be an example to other universities around the world. So I think it's a massive opportunity, and it's up to all of us within the E3 family, but also the leadership of the university now and in the future to make the most of that.
E3 can be a real driver for change in society. I think the graduates that will come out of the E3 Learning Foundry will be much more attuned to the ways in which their skills and training will be able to address the challenges the world faces, climate change, sustainability challenges, and many others. And I think it's a very exciting time.
E3 is the future. That's it. It's an optimistic and inquisitive interaction with the future.
Okay, so I hope that gave you a taste of what the E3 program really is all about. What I'd like to do is just show you another slide now, quickly, before we go on to the discussions. It's the next slide, Ellie, please. Thank you. Yeah. So this slide is just outlining some of the different master's programs that you can take relating to the E3 project. And today's webinar is focused very firmly on the master's projects on the right-hand side of that figure, the ones which are based in the School of Natural Sciences and also in the School of Physics when we're covering the energy science side of things. So actually today there's 3 seminars going on, webinars going on simultaneously, and we're just focusing on the ones on the right. So we offer, as a School of Natural Sciences, the MSc in Environmental Science, the MSc in Biodiversity and Conservation, a Master's in Development Practice, an MPhil in Environmental History, an MSc in Energy Science. Okay, and then we also have a new MSc which is cuts across all three schools, which is in Smart Cities and Sustainable Cities. Okay. So what I'd like to do now is close that slide, please, and move on to the discussion. Okay, so I'd just like to start the panel discussion now. We've met everybody at the beginning, and I'd just like to start with Mairéad, please, if I may. Mairéad, could you tell us what program you're currently studying and how you found your experience in Trinity so far?
Hi, Trevor. So I'm doing the Masters in Development Practice, which is a transdisciplinary course that has a range of modules, but there's a lot of environmental aspects to it. And yeah, I'm finding it brilliant. It's different this year, being remote, but it's going great so far. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. So how many people would you have in your class?
So we have, I think it's around 27, but it was, now I could get that wrong, but it's around that. And some classes were with different courses. So for our global health module, we're with a Master's in Health. And also we're split this year because the Masters have changed. So we have some students from last year's one, which is they're now second years. But most of the time, yeah, it's 30 people, around 27 to 30 people.
Good to know. And what would a typical day be like for you on the course? Could you describe that?
So yeah, it's quite structured. Last semester we had classes for most of the day. It would start around 10 a.m. and finish around maybe 4 or 5 p.m. We get our lunch break in the middle. This semester now it's a bit quieter because there's more time for our thesis. And so we usually have classes in the afternoon, say from 1 or 2 o'clock until about 5 o'clock, and the mornings are free then to study.
Okay, and did you have much group work and you mentioned the thesis there? Maybe you could tell us about group work and about your thesis and things.
I did notice this year there's a lot of group work, which was great because we're remote, it kind of helped us get to know each other a lot better. So I think there was extra effort put into the group work this year for us so that we could come together and work together. And that definitely helped, especially with it being remote, like getting to know each other. The group work has definitely helped with that. Thesis wise then, yeah, this semester, last semester was kind of more dedicated to classes and you get your head around what you might like to focus your thesis on. This semester then there's much more time so that we can get our literature review done and things like that. And then during the summertime get it completed. It's not due until August. So there's quite a few people on the class that tie their thesis in with their placements. So they'll be doing placements over the summer with different organizations, which is tied in with the thesis, and they have the summer months then to complete it.
Great, yeah, sounds great. And how have things been during the pandemic? I mean, it must be been quite tough.
I keep saying it to people, it sounds kind of selfish, but it actually suits me so much because it's a master's. Like, you're not going to have a social life really, I would have thought, because there's so much to it. So it's actually, I don't feel like I'm missing out from everybody going out and having a life. Nobody has a life these days, so we're all kind of, so it is a bit selfish, but it has suited. I thought it'd be strange getting to know the classmates and things like that, but from the beginning, because it's post-grad and the students are that bit more mature, it was kind of organized that we got a group chat going on WhatsApp from the very beginning, and everybody made an effort to get to know one another. And about half the students, maybe less. We've students from all across the world. So there is students from the Americas, from Asia, from across Europe, and we've all made friends, and they've stayed in their home places because of COVID, and we've been able to make friends and communicate and everything, even though we're in different parts of the world. So that's been pretty impressive.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you've been able to keep it going so well. I mean, in terms of your university experience, normally outside of the pandemic, there's more than just your course. There's other extracurricular activities you could get involved in and things like that, the wider Trinity experience. So have you had a chance to do any of that?
I have. I was worried because before starting I was hearing all about the different groups in Trinity and the Phil and the HIST and all the organizations, and I was really excited about getting involved in everything. But once I started, I realized all the groups were still there. They all organized events. Everything was remotely, but like you were still able to get involved in all the things. So myself, I joined the Green Campus, and that split into different subcommittees. So I was on the biodiversity subcommittee. So we organized different environmental talks during the year. There's another one coming up next week for Earth Week. If anybody is interested in that, keep an eye out for it. And what else? I was able to get involved in a CAP Talks lecture series. So one of the lecturers was involved with the UNDP and the EU Commission holding a lecture series online. So I was able to get involved with that and help organize the running of it and get it set up. I know that like we weren't in person and things, which that lecture series usually is, but it was still a brilliant experience to get involved with it, even if it is online.
Okay, great. Well, thanks very much. That was very informative and illuminating. I'll just move on to Namrata now, if you don't mind. Namrata Kaile is a past student from MSc in environmental science in Trinity, and she's currently working for the engineering company Barry and Partners. So Namrata, what was it like for you studying environmental science in Trinity College?
First of all, thanks a lot for having me here today. So it was a great experience studying at Trinity for sure. The modules and the overall course was structured so well that it provided a really good balance between theoretical learning and practical experience, be it in the field or in the lab. And also, like, the best part about the course was that it was so well suited that if you want to pursue a career after that in industry-based job or go for a research, so it fitted both the sides very well. Also, I just totally loved the field modules that was held in Spain for over 3 weeks. So it was a really good module, especially because it was all student-led. So it was organized in such a way that each day 2 or 3 students led the field trip. And the professors were there to help, obviously, but it was all student-led. So it was like we used to organize everything, do the surveys. So it really helped us build our surveying skills, our field skills, as well as our presentation skills, and to bring forward our idea and, you know, communicate well in a group. Apart from that, the course was the modules were so diverse that it fitted a range of people from different backgrounds. So you didn't really need to have one kind of a background to go into this course. It suited a lot, and that was what our class was like. Everyone was from different backgrounds, different countries, and it all worked together in the end. The lectures and the professors were amazing, and even the guest lectures were amazing. So it was all good in the end. And yeah, each session would really make you thinking about the different topics that you learned. So it was a great experience overall.
That sounds good. And how many people were in your class? I'm just trying to get a feel for the size of the class.
Oh, we were 15, but 15, we had a few modules with biodiversity and conservation. So in some modules we were 30 because they were 15 as well. So okay. Yeah.
I'm sorry if you're hearing a lot of noise. There's a hailstorm going on above my head, so hopefully that's not coming through to you. But if it is, I apologize for the noise in the background. So you had lab work as well as field work. To learn specific skills, presumably. Was there a nice balance between the lab and the field?
Yeah, it was for sure. So the lab work was basically, we used to collect the samples in the field and come back to the lab and test them. So they were for groundwater or maybe environmental monitoring, where we collected different macroinvertebrates in the field. So one day was the field, and the next 2 or 3 days you'll spend that in lab, analyzing everything in the chemistry lab or under the microscopes, and then just getting the reports out. So it was just not limited to desk-based learning or just, just submitting assignments or giving exams. It was like you collect the samples, you do everything on your own, and then have the report out to be submitted.
Okay. So, and what would you say was the biggest challenge you came across during your studies?
I think the biggest challenge for me was as an international student moving to a completely different country. So I felt that I came from a very different academic system background. So changing, adjusting into the background and how Trinity functions, it was a bit challenging in the start. So it took me a while to find my feet, but then it all went okay, because the professors and the classmates, they were also helpful. That they really make you blend into the new country, the new academic systems. So yeah, it just all got better with time. It just the initial few weeks that were tough.
Yeah, no, it's good. You're very brave, and it's very good to do it. That's part of the experience and part of the education, isn't it? So
yeah, sure.
Yeah. I mean, would you have any tips for incoming students then of how to deal with that situation? Would you have any tips there?
Yeah, I'd say, if you do your research well, so get to know, by that, when you have applied, you have your offer letter, you're going to be in Trinity, the course. Try to, there are various platforms that were open to us to get to know the fellow students. So before you reach here, start making friends, because it will be easier for you when you're in the city. First, in the city, if you have a few friends, a few people, it's easier to get around. So that's what I did. Then Trinity organized few kind of sessions before coming into the course, back in my country. So I attended those, made a few friends there, and then we came together to and we got a place together. We bought an apartment, got an apartment together. So it's easier for those kind of things, really, if you know people, if you know around. Then try to study the city, where everything is, how to get around, what kind of bus ticket to use, what kind of a rail ticket to use. So all these things are all available online. And even and even Trinity gave us all this information. So just if you're free, just try to get through it, so that it's not a shock when you come into a new country.
Okay, great. Well, let's hope we move back to that next term when things start again. It's a very different experience you've had to what we've heard about from Mairéad there. Yeah. So thank you very much. That's excellent. We'll move on. So next, I'd just like to ask Selina Paxton some questions. And Selina did the MSc in Energy Science in Trinity, and is currently working for Noriker Power Limited. So Selina, could you tell us something about your experience of what it was like to study in Trinity College?
Yeah, hi. I suppose I had a kind of mixture of experiences at Trinity, because I had my first 6 months were sort of normal at Trinity, and then obviously last March everything went a bit haywire. So I had in the energy science course, we have the sort of 2/3 of the year are taught modules, and then the final third is a lab-based thesis, which obviously mine didn't end up being lab-based, it ended up being my parents' house-based. But I still feel really lucky that I got at least 6 months in Dublin to kind of to just make the most of it. It was such a good city, and I wish I was back there. But overall, yeah, it's a very different experience. My class size was only 9 people, so we had very small class. But I think that's actually an advantage, particularly as an MSc student, because it's so easy since there's only 9 of you, you all have to be friends. And you all have to support each other. There's no second way about it. That's just how it is. So that was really good. And there's a lot more close contact with your professors, which I didn't have so much as an undergraduate, which was, again, really beneficial, not only during my studies, but also kind of looking forward to careers and post-Trinity life as well.
Okay, that's great. And so did you do much group work and project work before the pandemic struck? Was there an opportunity to do that sort of work in the lab or in the field, or
yeah, almost all of our modules had an element of practical work. So we had electrochemistry labs and we had combustion labs, which were all kind of in pairs or groups of 3. But really, as I said, since it was such a small group, almost everything we did was a group effort, really.
Yeah, sounds great. Yeah, and you were taught by staff from different schools, was it, or was it mainly schools of physics and chemistry? Was it across the other schools?
Yeah, I believe we had professors from all sorts. We actually had we had electronics module taught by somebody from TU Dublin. I think that's the right name for it. And we had physics, chemistry, mostly physics and chemistry. But it was and in engineering, we had an engineering module as well. So it was really wide ranging.
Okay, that's good. Now I have an interest in bioenergy. I'm a botanist, so I've done some work on bioenergy crops. So I always keep an eye on renewables and things like that. So it's fascinating, a great subject. So would you have any tips? Likewise, would you have any tips for students coming to Trinity and words of wisdom maybe that you could offer?
Well, I would say definitely any of the induction events, because I missed some of the induction events because I hadn't moved to Dublin yet. But they I think were a really good way to meet new people, and particularly people who aren't on your course, just to meet a few new people from different areas of the university. And I was in the chapel choir as well when I was at Trinity, so that was a great experience to meet people with from different ages, different sort of academic backgrounds and stuff. So that really enriched my time at Trinity. But obviously, I know that might not be a possibility for some time yet, but you never know.
Okay, great. Yeah, no, I'm really hoping things get back to normal very quickly. I mean, we're pushing out a program, obviously, with vaccination in the country and testing and all the rest of it. So let's keep our fingers crossed that we get back to things very, very soon. So thanks very much. That's great. I'll just move on really to move the discussion towards careers, really. Because obviously the subjects are interesting in themselves, but people want to know what you can do with particular degrees and what services that Trinity College can offer graduates. So we have John Wynne here from the Trinity College Careers Advisory Services. And John, could you outline some of the support that Trinity can offer students in terms of career development?
Sure, Trevor. So I'm the careers consultant for the school, and I work across all the postgraduate programs from the school. I think what I'd first like to say is that I've been working with the students from the school for the last 4 years. I have to say my experience has been extremely positive. Students from these courses are always engaged, they're enthusiastic and really passionate about the subjects they're studying. So I would say the quality of student is incredibly high, and some of the students I've met, if I'm honest, have been remarkable, and it's been kind of inspiring to actually work with them. So I think if you do decide to come to do some of these courses, you are going to be surrounded by some really excellent classmates. In terms of the supports that we provide, throughout the students' time at Trinity, I'm available to meet them on a one-to-one basis to discuss any issues related to their career or further study. I also provide in-class workshops, typically related to job search, job applications. We provide a series of ongoing weekly supports, such as CV and LinkedIn review clinics, practice interview supports, which students can book onto. Employer events are a huge part of our service provision. So we have a year-long series of employer events which is obviously a great opportunity for students to come and connect and to meet and to hear about opportunities. One of the biggest events on our calendar is the Science and Engineering Fair, which happened right at the start of the academic year in September actually. So that is attended by employers who are actively recruiting graduates. It's an event that some of the master's students don't attend that much because right at the start of the course, although we do advertise it quite a lot. But it's a key recruitment, I suppose, stage or step. So and the final thing then that I suppose that we have is a mentoring program. So this is a program that supports students to connect with the Trinity alumni community. And developing a professional network is really, really important, obviously, and we're actively encourage students to engage with employers and engage with the alumni community right from the beginning of their time here in Trinity.
Okay, great. No, that meant
in terms of that, a quick overview, I suppose, of the services that we provide.
No, that's great. It's a nice range of support systems you have in place there. And what type of employment have people gone into in this area?
So I suppose it's difficult to to say, because obviously it depends on the mastery that you do. But when I was thinking about this last night, I was thinking, one of the trends I'm definitely seeing more and more of is that actually people are starting to work with consultancies or as consultants, but typically joining a large consultancy organization. And that was always the way with our environmental science students, and they would end up, and some of our biodiversity and conservation students, they would end up working with engineering or planning or environmental consultancies, working as environmental consultants. But what I'm seeing now more of is actually, I think there's more, I think these consultancies and other consultants are coming in here, and they're offering a much wider breadth of services actually. And they're interested in more than just the typical environmental science and say consultant ecology students that they would have taken before. So we're now seeing students moving into, and I think this applies to all of the courses in the School of Natural Sciences. We're now seeing students moving into roles like sustainability consultants, ESG, so environmental and social governance consultants. So it's seeming they're taking a different, I think, a more diverse range of students as well. Now, obviously, there are still people going and getting jobs. So the environmental science grads are still getting grads in industry, or they're working with the local authorities, or they're working with organizations like the EPA. And the biodiversity and conservation students are still going and working in conservation projects. Or they're working with consultant colleges, and the NDP class are working in NGOs, and are working in a range of roles within NGOs, and the energy science students are working, in different roles across the energy science. And I would imagine with the new masters as well, I could imagine that they would also be potentially end up working in some of these kind of what we would call now environment and sustainable consultancies.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's such a broad range of master's courses, so obviously people end up in very different places after they've.
Absolutely, yeah. There's lots of different options, and people end up doing lots of different roles. Yeah, so it's very difficult to give a complete view of the options that people go through.
And would you have any advice for people on how they maximize their chances of employment after finishing? I mean, what sorts of things can they be doing to maximize their employment prospects?
Okay, and so I think one of the things with, and this is kind of leading on to, are there opportunities out there for students right now? And I think we're still seeing students being recruited actively. Over the last 12 months, we've definitely seen lots of our graduates get excellent jobs and being recruited. It has definitely been a little bit more difficult in terms of the pandemic, but I think the impact in terms of the labour market hasn't been as significant as we initially feared. So I think definitely there are opportunities there, but still it can be challenging, especially for some of the areas that our students want to go into. It can be challenging getting started in your career. So you do need to proactively go and develop some skills and competencies that employers are looking for. So again, one of the great ways to do that, within Trinity, and always has been within Trinity, has been the clubs and societies, the extracurriculars, volunteer opportunities there. And, ensuring that, I suppose, that you're engaging with services like ours is really important, that you have, your job applications are as good as they can be. You're excellent at doing interviews. All of those things are really important to prepare you, I suppose. And it can't be overstated, and I've already stated, and I'll continue to say it. I think the Trinity alumni network is a huge resource there for you to connect in with, because You know, that is how so many of the opportunities are never advertised, and it's through those connections and developing that professional network that you hear about opportunities. So you need to do that right from the beginning of your course. Yeah.
No, I think you're dead right. I think that networking is so important, isn't it? And just keep on top of things. So fantastic. Thanks very much. That was very useful. So just staying on the topic of industry, I'll just introduce my next panelist, who's Mark Foley, who's the Chief Executive Officer of Airgrid, the national electricity grid. So thanks, Mark, for taking time out to join us today. And could you just give people some background to Airgrid and what you're all about? Because I know you're a major employer in Ireland, so perhaps you could outline some of the things which Airgrid do.
Thank you very much. Look, a great pleasure to be here on this afternoon. Yeah, look, Eirgrid operates the power system and the single electricity market across both Northern Ireland and Ireland on a 24/7 basis. So we ensure that business and consumers have electricity at all times at the flick of a switch. I mean, that's essentially our core job. But crucially, we also plan the system of the future, which is very critical in these times as we embark on what I think is reasonable to say is the greatest transformation of our electricity system since rural electrification over 70, 80 years ago, because we're transitioning to a power system that's driven primarily by renewables. And the government of Ireland in the Climate Action Plan has set an ambition that the power system would have on average 70% renewables by 2030, which is a staggering achievement. Nobody else in the world has that level of ambition at this point in time. Last year, we achieved 40% of our electricity from renewable sources, which again was a world-leading achievement. So the job of the next decade is to go from 40% to 70%, and that's going to be very, very challenging, but it's also going to be a decade of extraordinary opportunity and extraordinary advances in technology. We employ 700 people between Northern Ireland and Ireland, and we have every discipline imaginable under a roof on a day-to-day basis.
I mean, it's really ambitious, but it's really essential as well, isn't it, for the health of the globe? So we really appreciate the work that you're doing. And what roles do you think the graduates will play within the industry in the future? What types of jobs will they come into? What will they be doing? What sort of skills will they need?
Well, if you look at this ambition, so today Ireland has one of the most sophisticated onshore wind ecosystems in the world, but what's coming down the tracks is the deployment of solar energy and indeed offshore wind and all the related technologies. The Irish Sea will see up to 7 large offshore wind farms being built in this decade, and the opportunities will be simply enormous, from project managers, environmental scientists, practically all of the engineering disciplines, ICT, and not to leave out the fact that private capital will fund most of this, and that'll, you know, keep lawyers and financiers and accountants going as well. So, I mean, the breadth of opportunity right across the whole, call it the power system end to end, from the generator right through to what we do, which is manage the power flows around the system, will be extraordinary. We have actually 50 vacancies as I speak today across all of the disciplines, from power system engineers to IT to project managers, etc.
Great, I'll get my application in.
Look up the website, we've a role for everybody.
No, that's fantastic. And so what are the characteristics of the graduates that you look for? What are the main characteristics that you would, if you were interviewing someone?
That's a great question, because I mean, the new blood coming into the organization, I often say, are the lifeblood of the organization. But the things I would look for, and we look for, is whatever discipline you come in, you do need to be a master of your subject matter. I mean, it's really, really important, whether you're a scientist, an engineer, or whatever, that you really have a good grip on the, you know, the technicalities or the science underpinning your qualification. I think that goes without saying, but sometimes it's important to emphasize. Always looking for people who are self-starters, people who are willing to work on their own initiative, people who are inquiring, curious, hungry for knowledge, and not waiting to be told what to do. Really, in this day and age, with the pace at which work advances with the deployment of technology, you need people to be really setting their own pace to a large extent. Communication skills are really important, and I do emphasize as part of that the ability to write well, and not everybody has that skill to the requisite standard. So really good communication, good writing skills, and having the confidence to find out the information you need to do the job, and not waiting for somebody to tell you, but being prepared to work the organization, and having that sense of personal confidence to ring somebody you don't know, or to stop somebody you don't know, and to start to get information out of them. And I think lastly, I think being prepared to challenge. Yes, even if it's your boss, but being able to challenge in an appropriately constructive way. And having that sense of always trying to improve the processes in the business, or improve your role, or improve your contribution, and how it adds value into the business.
Okay, great. Well, that's really useful advice, I think, to the students that are coming through, and the future students as well. So thank you very much.
Trevor, can I make just one more pitch in case? Yes. And that's we just launched literally 4 weeks ago what we call Shaping Our Electricity Future. It is the most ambitious consultation endeavour ever by a state company. We're engaging at national, regional, local level. And what we're trying to do is to get people engaged on what's the best pathway to 2030 to deliver our 70% renewables ambition. We've put 4 options out into play, and we really want to hear the views of everybody in the country, so that when we decide on what that pathway will be, and we will be deciding that later this year, we really want to feel we've got the views of people young and old. So that's my bit of a sales pitch. You look up our website, look up Shaping Our Electricity Future. The documentation we've put into play is absolutely top class. Take an interest in it, please, I would say to anybody on this call, and register your own views, your own opinions, because this is absolutely critical, because the decarbonisation of electricity then of course feeds into decarbonising transport and decarbonising heat. So this is really important for all of us in the fight against climate change. So please pitch in, have a read of the documentation and give us your thoughts, please.
Okay, will do. That sounds good, and it's a great way to get involved and have your word as well. So just keeping on the employment theme, really, just to hear it from the students' perspective. I mean, Selina, maybe I could ask you, but did you feel that Trinity prepared you well for your career development, and how did they help?
Yeah, definitely. I think from my perspective, I regret not having made the most of the Trinity Career Service. First of all, I would say that. I did have attend a CV clinic and things like that, but I think it's definitely an underutilized resource. But yeah, in terms of having close contact with my professors was really helpful in terms of looking forward to my future career plans. They had some great advice, and obviously it's in their interests to help you as much as possible as well, which is good. And I think just the breadth of my course in particular, we studied across the spectrum, hydrogen, we studied wind energy, solar energy, and that was a massive asset when I was particularly going to interview, because it means I could talk confidently about all those different generation types. And it's also in the company I work for, they build large grid scale batteries, and it means I can engage in other aspects of the business as well, having that breadth of knowledge. So that was really helpful for me.
Yeah, it sounds like a fantastic job that you've ended up in. So well done. And Namrata, how did you find the career development side of things? So you need to switch your volume, your speaker on.
Sorry for that. So it was really good. Trinity was really helpful because Trinity is so well recognized in Ireland, so it was definitely a plus point. Then the modules were structured so that they really help you when you go out for interviews, because that's what the employers are looking for. At least that happened with me, and even like the modules that I studied, I'm using them on a daily day-to-day basis in my job, like softwares like GIS or environmental laws and regulations, environmental monitoring. I like some of the examples that I'm ecology, like biodiversity side of things, surveying methods. So I'm actually using them in my job, and that's what I was interviewed on as well. So Trinity really played a huge role there. Plus, I'd say like I made most of the career services. I was there with John discussing my CV every 2 weeks or cover letters and whatnot. And then the job that I'm currently working in, I found that through the Trinity Career Fair. So that was a really good point, because being an international student, you really do not know what the industry is like in another country. So the job fair really puts all out in a platter for you to, you know, go home and look through, because all you need to know is where to apply and how to apply. So that was really helpful. Then I'd say if someone's looking for going into research or going for a PhD, Trinity was really helpful in that way as well. Because, for instance, in my case, like I did my thesis in Norway with the Western Norway University. So I ended up publishing my own paper, continuing the research even after my master's. So something like that would have been really useful for someone looking to go for a PhD. So that's what I was like torn between, where to go, which side to go. So, but yeah, it really keeps all your options open. So.
Okay, great. Thanks very much. I'm wary of time now. So just to round off, I suppose there's a lot of prospective students who will be listening in at the moment, and maybe for the three of you, Mairéad and Namrata and Selina, what would you say to those prospective students? Maybe Namrata first.
Okay, I'd say make use of all the services that Trinity provides. There are so many literally platforms that you're offered subscription to as a student. So make most use of them, make use of Trinity Career Services. There are so many clubs to get involved into. At the end of my master's, I felt like I didn't do enough to get involved into everything. So make sure you do everything. There are amazing study spaces on campus. So make most of all your experience and what all you're offered to as a student. And then I'd say explore a lot, but also give a lot of importance to your grades and building up your CV, building up your skills, because in the end that really reflects upon what you learned. Yeah.
Okay, great, thanks. And Selina, would you have a few words?
Yeah, I agree definitely with Namrata. Just make the most of it, because you never know when it's all going to be shut down, especially if you get to go to Dublin. Make sure you make the most of it. And yeah, I think you just have to throw yourself into it 100%, and it will definitely pay off. It's definitely been worth it, and been a great decision for me. Good,
that's good to hear. And Mairéad?
Yeah, what Selina was saying there, throw yourself into it 100%. What I'd say is believe in your capabilities, because when I joined, I came from a very small college, and there was an element of imposter syndrome when you're around people that are so engaged and so capable. But I think once you believe in yourself and know that you can get there and get it done, you'll be fine. So just know that you can and go for it.
Good, that's good advice. So thanks very much to everybody who's taken part in the panel discussion. That was really informative and enjoyable. So thank you very much for your time as well that you've given to us. I know Ellie wants to show some more slides and discuss a few more things with everybody before we say goodbye. So I'm just going to hand over to Ellie now. So.
There we go. Perfect. Thanks very much, Trevor. And thank you, just to echo Trevor, to say thank you so much to all of the panelists who took time to speak with us today. I know I certainly found it really, really interesting and useful. So just a few logistical things, I suppose, just to finish us off. So I am from the E3 recruitment and admissions team. So I know I have been in touch actually with a few of you who've maybe tuned in today throughout your application process, or for those of you who are maybe interested and thinking about applying in the future. So along those lines, I just want to highlight that there are a few scholarships available that are specific to the E3 courses. So for anyone interested in any of the programs that Trevor highlighted prior to the panel, anyone with offers to those courses would be eligible to apply for the E3 scholarships. For entry in 2021, the scholarships range anywhere from around 2,000 to 4,000 euro, and that will be then reevaluated for the next year. So just keep an eye on that space. Those scholarships will be announced when the new applications are open in the future. But it's a great opportunity to kind of facilitate your study. So I just one thing wanted to highlight there. And then secondly, as it's been very apparent from the panel, obviously COVID is continuing to impact all things. And I think Namrata, Selina and Mairéad are a great example of how there's been very different experiences over the last 3 years, and it's likely to be some different iteration for the year coming. So there is a website with updates on kind of the latest news and what to expect and what's happening within Trinity. So I definitely recommend students to utilize that resource just to keep up to date, because as we all know, things are changing on a daily, if not hourly basis. So we're doing our best to stay in tune with that and provide as much information as possible. And as Trevor said, we're really hoping that things continue to look beneficial with the rollout of the vaccine for the coming fall, but of course none of us can fully predict that, so that's what this resource is for. I'm not sure, Trevor, do you want to add anything else to that? You're just muted there.
Sorry, no, that's everything from me. I'll just say, look, I have a number of PhD students who work in my lab and they're back working now. So things are moving back to normal. We can't promise what's going to happen in the future, but project work and things like that is occurring at the moment, and I can only see that getting better next term. It's still, obviously we're still going to be influenced by COVID the beginning of next academic year, but I think we'll be in a much better position. I'm hoping, but obviously I can't predict what's going to happen with the pandemic, but let's keep our fingers crossed.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Trevor. So lastly, I just want to highlight, like I said, I've been in touch with some of you already, but there is the option to book a one-to-one appointment with either myself or my colleagues who are also recruitment and admissions officers for E3 and are attending the other sessions today. But that's really just so that we can talk through the potential courses available if you're unsure what would be a suitable fit for you to apply for, or perhaps you have questions about the application process itself, the online portal, anything like that. And then also following your application, if there are further questions, if you are to receive an offer, if you have any questions about coming to Ireland, coming to Trinity, any of that logistic stuff, we're more than happy to discuss that. So I just wanted to highlight that you can book a one-to-one appointment with any of us and we can have a quick chat on that. And on the next slide, I've also just listed our individual emails. So please feel free to reach out with any questions that you might have in general, or of course, if there's any follow-up questions on anything that was discussed today, we'd be more than happy to redirect your email to the suitable person if needed, or answer them directly ourselves. So that being said, I just really want to thank the time that all the panelists took today to speak and share their experiences. It was really great to see such a wide range of experiences and really give the sense of all the different opportunities within Trinity and life after Trinity as well. And also to all of you for taking the time to tune in. We really hope you found it useful and helpful no matter what stage in the process you're in. So thank you again, and I'll hand it over to you, Trevor, just for a final.
Yes, thanks very much. So we'll just bring things to a close now. Just thanks everybody for attending the webinar today. I hope you found it useful and informative. And I hope to see some of you in Trinity College next year, next academic year. As you've just heard, there's lots of points of contact there. If you have any follow-up questions, do feel that you can ask, and people are very willing to answer any questions afterwards, because we haven't had the chance to answer everything today and cover everything today.